Quit while you're ahead. Thank you very much. That was a lovely, warm welcome, and thank you. And what a remarkable, and in many ways, rather historic day today is, isn't it? The first cabinet meeting that has taken place on a Saturday since my 18th birthday, on the 3rd of April 1982, when of course we went to war in the Falkland Islands. I have to say, you probably haven't heard it, but there is one quote today that I think will live through this referendum campaign and perhaps for years to come. And it's been made by Michael Gove. And Michael Gove, who of course came out yesterday before everybody else. I'm not quite sure what the Prime Minister made of that. And Michael Gove has said this afternoon, every day, every minister is told, yes, Minister, but that would be against EU rules. Wow. Yeah. And haven't we been the party who for years have been saying, look how impotent this country's become. We've literally given away the ability to govern ourselves. 75% of our laws are made somewhere else. I mean, crikey, I've been banging this drum for 20 years. And in the early days, virtually nobody turned up to listen. And now they are listening, and now from inside the cabinet, all those things we've said have been validated. And that's what's going to be so fascinating about the next few months, is that we are going to have to work together, operate together, with people who have been traditionally our political enemies. If you'd said to me, even 6 months ago, that I would stand on a stage in London, in front of a packed room of 2,000 people, and be the warm-up act and introducer for the leader of the Respect Party, if you'd said that, I'd have probably felt your bumps, you know. But there we are. You know, I mean, I couldn't sit down and over a cosy cup of coffee discuss Israel with George, or economic policy with George, or actually virtually anything with George. Because we're diametrically opposed on almost all political opinions. But, folks, the point is, George believes in the United Kingdom as an independent nation state that governs itself through its own people, in its own parliament, and its own government, adjudged by its own Supreme Court. And I couldn't care less about George on the left or somebody on the right or people in the middle. If we're going to win this referendum, we've got to cast aside all those differences we've had between us and work together as our forebears did from 1940 onwards to defeat the common enemy and get back the freedom, independence, pride and self-respect of this nation. And I'll tell you something interesting. I remember a few years ago, after the European Constitution had been rejected by the French and rejected by the Dutch, and I remember then thinking, well, just maybe this European Union will now change. Maybe it will reform. I thought that for 2 or 3 days, I think I thought it until the so-and-sos in Brussels rebranded it as the Lisbon Treaty and decided to push it through. And former Italian Prime Minister D'Amato said the beauty of calling it a treaty and not a constitution is we won't need to put it to referendums. And I thought, anyway. But one country did have a referendum, and that was Ireland. Because the Irish Constitution means that any constitutional change means that people have to have a say. And by the way, once we've left the EU, I think we need to update our constitution to make sure our politicians can never again give away the liberties as they have from the common market. Anyway, the Irish had a referendum on Lisbon, and I was able to use a very large amount of European Parliament information budget. Now, this money was designed from the start to be used by MEPs and MEP groups to promote the European Union to the peoples of Europe. But nowhere in the rules, and my lawyer looked at it, nowhere in the rules did it say that you couldn't use the money to perhaps give an alternative point of view. And what we did in our group was we managed to put an 8-page booklet through the door of every house in Ireland, warning them what the Lisbon Treaty meant, warning them what deeper integration politically would mean, and in particular, warning them that they joined the wrong currency. And the Irish voted no. And I remember the day after that, being in the European Parliament, in perhaps one of the liveliest debates I've ever been engaged in all my years there, and anyone that's seen YouTube will know I have been involved in a few scuffles in that place, and I don't get many Christmas cards. But it was a big toing and froing, and I remember Martin Schulz, who then was the leader of the Socialist group, and who now, of course, is President of the European Parliament, and Schulz in that Irish debate, after the no, he said, he raised a question. He said to the Parliament, "Where has the passion gone?" And he pointed over at me. He said, "It's gone to the other side." And you know what? He was right. He was right. And that's our opportunity in this referendum, because the passion is on our side of the argument. There are very, very few people out there who genuinely and sincerely think the European project is a good and necessary thing. Most people go along with it. They go along with it because they're busy bringing up their kids, living their lives. They're not particularly keen on current affairs or politics, and they probably don't actually really know just how much it's costing us as a country financially and in every other way. And what that means is that between 25 and 33% of the population of this country, including here in Wolverhampton and across the West Midlands, have not yet made up their minds, and in many cases at the moment probably won't go out to vote unless we can reach them, unless we can communicate with them, unless we can talk to them. And you'll remember, those of you that have been in UKIP for a couple of years, you'll remember that at the end of my second debate with Nick Clegg, and I'm still massively grateful to Nick for boosting I mean, without Nick, we'd never have won the European elections, really. But at the end of that debate, and I don't know where it came from, and you know, all the best things in life are unscripted. The best things in life just happen. Trouble is, the worst things in life happen that way as well. And I looked into the camera and I said, "I urge you to come and join our People's Army." Do you remember that? Yeah. Our People's Army. And we've called ourselves the People's Army ever since. And now, under the banner, with this delightful starlight. Well, it may be somewhat brash and vulgar, but bloody hell it gets noticed. I think it is luminous, yes.
Star Wars.
And we did build our People's Army, and we fought some extraordinary campaigns, ladies and gentlemen, over the last 3 or 4 years. From the English county elections, through the European elections, through a general election, which, blooming hell, wasn't it tough? Yeah. And didn't, you know, I mean, frankly, elements of the media sort of try to make it virtually impossible for us. Yeah. But we still came out, I think, given the circumstances and given the swing to the Conservatives for fear of the SNP, I think the fact we came out of that with 4 million votes actually was a great feather in our cap. Yeah. Yeah. We would not even be having this referendum if it wasn't for UKIP, all right? It's because of us. What we have to do is we have to take our People's Army and we have to ally it to those in the Conservative Party, those of the Labour Party, those of none, who want to get stuck in and roll their sleeves up and help in this referendum campaign. And we've got to do all of those things we've done before, but do it bigger and better. And that means street stalls. It means delivering leaflets through doors. It means knocking on doors. It means going out and talking to people. And it doesn't matter how young or old or fit or frail you are, every single one of us can play our role in this, with our family, with our friends, where we socialise, down the pub in my case, or whatever. A chance to be a thing these days, wouldn't it? But wherever we go. And that really is my message to you, the UKIP members here in the West Midlands. You know, we're actually in one of the parts of the country that has got, in many ways, one of the longest Euro-sceptic traditions. And indeed, this very town, of course. One of the famous sons was dear old Jack, who, of course, helped UKIP in the early days. And there was a member of Parliament here called Enoch a few years ago, who had a few things to say about the common market. And he was followed on, of course, by Nick Budgeon and others. If we mobilise ourselves in Wolverhampton and elsewhere, if we join together with those from other parties who traditionally we fought against, we must link arms with in this great campaign. And if we can talk to enough people and persuade enough people, we will win this referendum. And that is my cry and my call to you. Let's roll our sleeves up. Let's win this referendum.